said to keep your hands on the wheel of life. You gotta steer that thing. Mess with no girl, said that ring says.
Any musician could probably pinpoint the moment that turned them on and made them want to do what they do as a musician. And I guess for me it was the Allniters, so they are to blame. The gig was an all-ages show at Luna Park. It was 1984 perhaps, and a bunch of my mates from school decided, yeah, it's an all-ages show, there's music, let's go and have a bit of a look. I'd heard ska music before, so I knew a little bit about it, and I liked the fact that there was brass and trumpets and stuff because I was learning the trumpet. But that gig at Luna Park was something really special for me because I saw this band on stage playing the music that I was familiar with, but it was amazing. It was fun, it was energetic, it was a bunch of kids my age jumping up and down to a band that was really quite an experience, an event really. Big band, big sound, jumpy, happy music. And I started to do a little bit more exploration into the band, the Allniters. I started to try and follow them around as much as I could at that age. So I went to blue light discos that they were playing at, and I seemed to connect with them from a fairly young age, I guess. And at that point in time I just looked and I thought, well, that's what I want to do. I want to play music like that. So my band at school was called the Gangsters, and when I left school, formed Brass Razoo, still doing ska covers. About 93, I entered an ad in Drum Media to join a Complete Madness tribute band. So for all these bands, I was the front man, I was the singer. And then during the era of Complete Madness, Brett and Pete turned up to a gig. I recognised them, I went and said g'day. We became friends, I suppose. A little while later, they asked me to come along to the Lunatics, which was a new band they had together, and I ended up playing keyboards in that band. I'm playing keyboard in the Lunatics, but I'm also singing in Complete Madness. So Complete Madness go off to New Zealand for a tour. The Lunatics had some gigs. I decided to replace myself in the Lunatics with a friend of mine, Alistair Law, who was also in the Gangsters at my school. So I get back from New Zealand, the phone's a bit quiet, I'm not getting many phone calls from Brett and Pete, so I thought, oh well. Anyway, I get a phone call from the manager of the Lunatics, Kelly Hall, who says, look, you haven't been sacked. You've just been replaced by someone who's a much better player than you, that's all. However, the last laugh is on me because when Alistair went away on his honeymoon, I got to play with the Allniters. And my life is complete.
Yeah, I reckon I was in the hangovers. I was still at school, so we were doing gigs at, I don't know, I was 15 or something. And then I heard the trombone sound, and that's what attracted me to it. I was already playing the trombone, and I just went, oh, I love this. I fell in love with Don Drummond and Rico Rodriguez, that sound. And then that sound, it forever has defined how I hear the trombone and how I want it to sound. So those guys, and then it all connects with the jazz thing, with Kid Ory and all the early jazz players. It's all sort of similar era, what was going on in Jamaica and what was going on in America was all the same. So that was really a defining thing for my sound on the trombone and what I'm into. And then, so I played in the hangovers, and then I guess in some ways the Allniters were kind of the enemy, you know. The hangovers were kind of like, you know, Allniters, you know, those guys, you know, because we were the new kids on the block, and you guys were well and truly established. And, you know, it's sort of like there'd been a little bit of a wane and up and down with the ska scene. So my mate Ralph Frankie, the tenor player who was in, I don't know how many years Ralph was in the band for, but I remember one night I had a gig at the Strawberry Hills, and he came in and he goes, mate, what are you doing tomorrow night? And I said, oh, nothing. And he goes, you're working with the Allniters tomorrow night. I have to pull out of a gig. And I'm like, what? You know, and all my mates from the hangovers used to come to my Strawberry Hills gig. It was a jazz gig, and they come down Friday night and have beers and stuff. And I'm like, no. And he said, no, you're doing the gig. So sure enough, the next night, I did the gig. I know a little bit of the repertoire. And after that, I was in the band. It was just like wow. I'm playing. I'd seen the band a couple of times, and you know, and I was going, oh wow, this is, you know, I always remember it being really great fun. And that's exactly what it was. I think I was just attracted to the music, and the chance to play that music for me was a really really amazing thing. Like, it was just like, wow, I get to play ska music. I learnt to do some backing vocals doing the Allniters, so I went and studied singing. So from that, I'm a jazz singer, so and a jazz trombone player. And that's what I do for a living. And it's just sort of taken that step. So I've got my own big band, and I tour. I go to Europe. I try to go at least twice a year. I've toured in Brazil like 4 times. Go to the States and just play and record, and that's what I do.
Please thank Daniel Barnett on the trombone.
Yeah, I think the whole thing about the Allniters was that it was like ska music's really simple. It was fun to play. People were having a good time. They're dancing, and the Allniters was just heaps of fun. And I remember that's probably the most memorable thing. I remember some of the biggest belly laughs of my life with the Allniters.
Just like Leon Dennis.
Yeah, thank you.
The Allniters and Ska music for me started at the same time. There was a bunch of messed up kids from the Northern Beaches, saw madness, fell in love with the Allniters. And the guys knew us, we'd turn up at a gig and they'd wander in and out of the venue and say hello and, make a bit of a joke with us or laugh, and then they'd get on stage and point at us and say something horrifically rude and highly inappropriate, and, we'd all laugh and fall over and feel like we were actually part of something, which wasn't what was happening for us in our other lives. We were all doing shitty jobs to throw money together so we could go to gigs. Life was just kind of really shitty for a bunch of us on the Northern Beaches because we didn't fit into that surfy kind of thing, I was out and obviously not a nice, pretty blonde beach girl. Donna was into the whole punk thing, which didn't fly over there. A couple of the others were certainly not, typical Northern Beaches kind of girls. And we found this funny little home, and we just kept going. And the band kept putting up with us. Perversely, I'm not sure why. We never got ejected from venues that I can think of. We probably should have been. But yeah, that's it. That's how we got obsessed with the Allniters, and that dragged us into the ska mod scene as well. We never quite fitted into it. We never looked the part. I mean, none of us had money. We were making our own clothes with that whole punk ethos thing, so we're wearing everything that's ripped up and safety pinned together, and I'm silk screening shit before a gig, and, so we didn't have the Bob and the, and the Doc Martens. No one could afford them. I had shit that I bought from a $2 store and just destroyed with paint, which in a room full of people with Fred Perrys and button-down collars and stuff kind of stood out like dog's balls. But yeah, it was the music, and it was just that one particular band. Because of the Allniters and the stuff that I learnt while I was lugging beer and gear with those guys, I went off to be a lighting guy and a props maker. So I ended up having this sort of career in entertainment, and always in sort of the tech side or, bits and pieces here and there, but learnt so many skills and so much stuff that I've had a very unusual, very, very interesting, very, very creative life, purely because I fell in love with this insane band and was just bloody minded determined that I was gonna get to know them and lug their crap, and the rest, as they say, is history. It was a wonderful experience. I'd do it all over again if I had to.
I think I was in 5th form at high school, and all my friends started digging this ska music, and of course, you just got led into it by there and started listening to it, and decided we should formulate a band. So I think we did that in around 1982 at Balgowlah Boys High, and I couldn't play an instrument, so I was thrust into the centre as a singer. The whole scene, the whole ska scene was very exciting, and we were lucky enough to be, we were an underage ska band, and we were lucky enough to be taken under the Allniters wing. They saw something in us that they dug, obviously, and we played around with them, and we played at the Manly Vale, which was a huge gig, lots of people, so it gave us a lot of scope, and a lot of people came to see us there and got to know who the Leftovers were as well. To me, I went from a young surfer who was hanging at home a lot of times and drinking around, the cliffs, to this dude that had this outfit and had a direction and just listened to ska music at that point. and went to pubs and started playing in bands. So it actually changed my life completely. It put me on a whole different direction, and I'm really pleased for that, you know. And yeah, like, you know, that was a big time in my life and a really happy time in my life. So thank you, Ska.
The music itself has had a profound influence on my life. Right from the early days, it's always been something that's inspired me. It's given me something to look forward to. There was always a lot of expectation when the southern bands were coming up to Brisbane, because we were really starved of music up here. So when the Allniters would come up, it was a big event. It was a reason to go and have a nice time. I particularly would follow the band around wherever it was in southeast Queensland. I'd turn up, and I suppose, like a groupie, I'd show up at hotels and hang around after gigs, and I suppose that resulted in some very strong friendships being developed. Ultimately, that led me to being involved with ska bands in Brisbane, and now I suppose I'm playing in ska bands myself. I turned 40, and my wife had always been very frustrated with the amount of time I'd spend out with bands, going and seeing bands. And on my 40th birthday, there was a big box on the kitchen bench, and I opened it up, and it was a saxophone. And I sort of said, well, you know, what is this? And she said, well, you spend enough time seeing bands, it's about time you started playing in one. I started with a band called Roots Above Ground, playing sort of punky ska, and I'm still playing in the Phonetics. I play baritone sax with them, as well as another band that I'm now in called Pick It Up. Thoroughly enjoying it.
Well, I'll tell you one story about the Allniters. It was 1987. It was at the Seabreeze Hotel in Nelson Bay, and we'd had a great night. The band had finished, and I looked over, and Brett was kissing my girlfriend. Kissing my girlfriend, but it's okay. It was the Allniters, I suppose.
Sometimes it really blows my mind where I left it. It's about never it always seems to go. Where the hell I don't know. Where the park was
About 1983, 1984, there was a ska special on Rock Arena that showed Madness, the Specials, all those bands, and I think a couple of Australian bands. And about the same time, I'd left high school, but one of the guys that I went to high school with was in a ska band called the Bouncing Souls from Newcastle. And I ended up drawing a logo for those guys, and went and saw those guys, and I was hooked on ska from then. And the next band playing in town was the Allniters. And we went to that, and whoa, it was a whole new world. So that was ska, and I was hooked from there. And then about 1985, the Allniters kind of stopped playing for a while, and about the same time, all the other ska bands that we were interested in had either demised or become pop bands, or there wasn't any good ska bands in town. So one night, me and a friend in Newcastle just went, in a drunken stupor, we could start our own ska band. Yeah, yeah. And the fact that neither of us could play any instruments or had any idea of musical stuff, but again, I suppose inspired by Brett from the Allniters, we just knew that we could be on stage and have fun, and we wanted to be that guy. And from then we started my little band called the Pork Hunts, and actually within a few years we were actually playing a show with the Allniters, I think at Macquarie Uni, and that was the first time. And from then on we became the Porkers, We recorded a few albums. I started my own label, and then 1999 I was releasing an album for the Allniters. So that's my connection with the Allniters.
From the fairway to the green, so step aside and let me play on through to the 19th. I'm not content to be number one, but the best there's ever been. And now it's time for me to come up with the goods. So I'm swinging like Tiger Woods. I don't know if I can or if I could. So I'm swinging like Tiger Woods.
I was in America on a school concert band tour, and my best mate on the bus was listening to a tape over and over again on his Walkman, and I said, what the hell are you listening to, mate? And he said, oh, have a listen. First song was Hold On. And that was like, holy hell, who's this? And anyway, it ended up being the Allniters, and from that moment on, I stole the tape off him in his Walkman for the next 2 weeks, and I just listened over and over and over to those songs, and it was awesome. It just inspired me. And then I actually took my first girlfriend to see a concert at Belmont 16 Footers. She was underage, I was just of age, and that blew us away as well. And not long after, a band in Newcastle called Vegemite Reggae started up, and my saxophone teacher was the sax player, and we went, every time they played, we were there, and they became very popular, and I ended up filling in for the sax player, which was great. And then out of that came the Pork Hunts, which Pete Cooper, myself, and a few other guys put together for a party. And 27, 28 years later, the Porkers are still going, thankfully. And here I am now at an all-nighters rehearsal, playing some saxophone for these guys who I loved listening to back then. So it's been an awesome trip. Late 90s, 98, I think, we did the Scafari tour with the Allniters and the Porkers together, and that was great because every night I got to see these guys who I'd sort of idolised, and gave a lot of influence to the Porkers, particularly Pete and I, and we just wanted to, tour, take it further, see how far we could go with it, and thankfully the Porkers did a lot. We toured Europe, America, Japan, and Australia about 30 million times, I reckon. But if it wasn't for these guys, I don't think the Porkers would exist.
I'm swinging like Tiger Woods. Yeah!
I think it was 1982 or 83, I went to Ipsin on Oxford Street, and there was a sign up for ska, and I can remember thinking to myself, literally, what the fuck, I haven't heard any ska since about 1968, because ska to me was obviously Jamaican ska. I'd lived in West Germany since about 77. So I missed the whole two-tone movement. I had no idea about it. And I came out here and I saw ska and I thought, wow, this is awesome. I'm gonna go back and check out this kind of Jamaican thing here in Australia, unbelievable. So I go and see this ska band and it's all this up-tempo shit, and I'm going, what the fuck is this? I was really unimpressed. They'd screwed my musical heritage, I was just dumbstruck, really. And I didn't change that attitude until the next Allniters EP. That was kind of my introduction to ska, and that was where I kind of got to like it, but I was always a serious reggae head. Back then, my recollection of sort of like the mid-80s in music here was that like every pub everywhere in the country had a gig. And then you had kind of a lower order, a middle order, and an upper order of bands. And the upper order of bands were like, Cold Chisel and In Excess and Mental as Anything, stuff like that. The Allniters were up there in that upper order as well. Some of the best years of my life in this country were in Club Ska, touring everywhere, and connecting with people that love Jamaican music, and that was the most important thing. Where that's paid off is now, kind of 30 years later. The camaraderie that exists in the ska scene, or with the people that played in those ska bands back in the day, is just second to none.
Recently I formed a ska super band with famous faces from the Sydney scene. Features members of Club Ska, Backy, Skank, the Porkers, and of course the Allniters.
I look at myself now and I think, you know, shouldn't I grow up, or it's about time to put the boots away or anything, but it becomes part of you. You know, it becomes what you enjoy the most. You just be able to be yourself and listen to a really good beat and not having any of that kind of pressure.
I'm currently singing with the Oscars, and we've just finished an EP, a 7-song EP, including our first music video called Hip Hip Hooray. Spider that climbed up on the wall. Humpty looked at me and said, "Hey, you're the one who falls." I didn't actually start singing till later on in my life. I think I was in my early 30s, and I joined an all-girl band in Canberra. I started off there with this band was called the Baby Shakers, and also a couple of punk bands. I first listened to ska in my teenage years when I was in high school. I remember seeing Montego Bay and thinking, wow, these guys are great. They're from Sydney and they're Australian, and they really captured my heart, I think. I just loved their look, I loved the music, and the more that I learnt about the ska scene, it really, I really identified with it, and it just became part of who I was. 2010, the Allniters reformed to do Stark Raving Mod for Ariane's book launch, so it was very exciting to attend that, and I was looking forward to see the Allniters again because it had been many years, I guess. So from there, I was introduced to Marty Fabok. We met at the after party and had a chat, and he asked me, would you be interested in joining a ska band? And I said, absolutely, I'd love to, and I'd be privileged, feel privileged to do that with you. From there we started jamming and doing gigs. I've had a great response, and it's been really nice to be able to, you know, support a lot of the bands from back in the day that have reformed and re-energised the scene again. Another great experience I got to have was singing with the Rocksteady Rat Pack, with all the Australian ska legends of their time, and that was really good fun. And yeah, so I feel privileged that I've been part of that, and I'm really proud of the Allniters and all the ska bands that influenced, you know, myself, you know, over the years.
Slow down, you're moving too fast. Hold on, I'm trying to follow. You keep on walking and you walk right past. Hold on, I'm trying to follow. I'm trying to follow you to find out who the boy was that stole your love. We went out dancing and you took the lead. Hold on, I'm trying to follow. With a friend like you, I need a friend indeed. Hold on, I'm trying to follow. Trying to follow you to find out who love me and you'd always be true. Hold on, I'm trying to follow. Your kind of love is something new. Hold on, I'm trying to follow. I'm trying to follow you to find out who the boy was that stole your love. Now this affair was doomed from the start. Hold on, I'm trying